the irony behind this particular installation is that he splits his time between Mexico City and the Hudson Valley, and his work is always about bringing people together and creating community, and he does that by making meals for folks. And this was supposed to be an oven. These are the materials he was going to use to build an oven that he was going to use monthly to make all sorts of flatbreads and pizzas and things like that. And because of the coronavirus, and the questions that he's grappling with have everything to do with borders, with contemporary geopolitics and how those things keep us apart, how we might overcome those things, and the coronavirus and the kind of the geopolitical realities from that really prevented him from coming. So we wanted to kind of leave a space for him when he's able to come back. He'll make an oven, and then we'll all come together. And all right, sorry. Good. All right, here's the husband and wife team. So Sarah Max Beck and Robert C. Beck, they have worked for years as studio hydrostatic. Really interesting crew. They create these like weird circular, weird installations that create these kinds of circular systems. They're really into making these blown glass structures, very large blown glass structures that grow all sorts of different kinds of fish and different kinds of plants and create all these different ecosystems, and there's all sorts of pumps and all sorts of wires and tubes. And I thought it'd be very cool to see if they could figure out something to do here in a field where there's no electricity. And over the course of like their brainstorming, they were like, you know what? Actually, I think we have to like do separate things. I think their collaboration hit like a moment of tension, and Sarah wanted to go one way, and Robert wanted to go another way. And I said, okay, listen, that's fine. Do whatever you want, but you have to find a way to work together. Your pieces have to be in conversation with each other. I thought I was being a pretty good marriage counselor. And they made something really great. Very different and great. So Sarah's piece is a giant phallus made of wood chips and a variety of other things that is growing little wine cap mushrooms, little phallic mushrooms that are essentially going to decompose the phallus. So the little phalluses are going to eat the big phallus, and the wine cap mushrooms are edible and pretty delicious. So you can eat the fruit of the mushrooms. So there's a kind of thing happening here. But in order for the mushrooms to grow here, they need regular supply of water. They need to be moist. So here comes Robert's piece, which is kind of like, I don't know what the hell it is, like Mars thing. But really what this is a water collector and pump. And it's essentially collecting water and collecting energy and pumping the water around the phallus. What one person said that I thought was really interesting about the relationship between these pieces was that this one is all form and this one is all function, and it says a lot about their marriage. So, that's Daniel, that's Kristen.
Hello.
Hello. Well, sorry to be late to join. Anything else I should say about this piece?
So these are rain gutters. I think you can sort of tell by looking at it, where it captures the water, it feeds it into these two big tanks here, and similar to my project, it's being charged off of these solar panels. So it's completely self-sustaining. It'll run, you know, it doesn't need any assistance. And then there's underwater tubing that and a pump that forces it out to the drip feed system on the big dick.
The big dick.
Yeah.
Where are the little mushrooms? They just haven't sprouted yet.
So, I think Matthew picked all of them. Yeah.
No, I saw. The thing with the wine cups is they're really they like decompose really quickly. There was early on. There was a ton of, like, I came back, I'm like, oh my gosh, and stupidly I had my cell phone on and it was in the car, and I'm like, I didn't take any pictures, and I thought I'll come back in a few days and I've got my really nice DSLR camera, I'll document it. And I came back and we had like this, it was like a day of heat and it just killed them all off. So they are sort of fragile, but I imagine they'll probably come back in the spring. The wood chips really need to decompose a bit more. They've been inoculated with the spores, so that'll spread throughout it, and hopefully we'll get more fruiting bodies showing up.
Yeah, they are late spring.
Yeah.
That's when they emerge around here, kind of on their own. So there's probably an incredible sort of like mycelial colony that's kind of, you know, taken over that form. So it's there, and it's probably grand.
Yeah. We'll have like a huge mushroom feast here. We can use the oven, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. We'll make mushroom flatbread.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I know. Thank you. I saw that. Unless is my dad here?
I think he. Oh yeah.
Oh, but do you want the chair? You want the chair? All right. We're almost done, and then we can kind of talk for a second. So let's stop here.
The potatoes.
Oh yeah.
Do you, maybe you can give it to somebody else and tell us a little.
Oh, I see.
Would
you manage that?
Sure.
So I don't know if you've noticed, but there, as we were walking, there were two other forms, very much like this one, like these pink. What do they call it? Magenta? Pink?
Yeah, they're hot pink.
Hot pink.
Neon pink.
Neon pink poles with a nice juicy nugget in the center.
Well described.
That's a work by Michael and Derek. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I collaborated with a friend who I went to graduate school with, Derek Straub, to do this project, and it's an interesting sort of synthesis, the two of us coming together. Derek is really known for works that are kind of based on the aesthetics of the periphery or the margin. You know, he loves those kind of plants that kind of grow off at the edge of the parking lot. He loves the sort of architecture of old sort of like strip mall spaces that nobody uses anymore. One of my favorite projects of his was kind of a graffiti, what did he call it? Shoot. You know how when they sort of, somebody will spray graffiti on an underpass, and then the city will come back and sort of roll over it with a slightly different version of gray. Somebody will come back and spray paint it again. They'll come back and do another version. He was really interested in those as kind of sort of found modernism, and was kind of replicating this painting. So he sort of brings this kind of modernist kind of like analysis of these kind of like accidental sort of like moments in the sort of margins of our world. And of course, I'm coming with a whole different kind of like agenda, so it was a fascinating fusion. I've been working here on this site for like 4 years with different projects, and just sort of in the interest of keeping the public safe, I've been felling all of these trees that you know, sort of like once occupied this entire sort of corridor that that was named by Tal when we walked through, and this forest back here where all the trees died from infestation of emerald ash borer. So I've been taking them down, and part of what's complicated about that is that also sort of like really sort of screws with bird habitat in these areas. And this happens a lot in these kind of sort of like zones around sort of like suburban areas, or sort of like areas that are sort of like pretty well occupied by people. You look at a map of the east and it's just like one little parcel after the next little parcel after the next little parcel, as opposed to the west where it's just giant vast parcels. so that these whole areas tend to be somewhat manicured, even though there's a lot of wild forest. So it was really interesting to me to kind of, I don't know, bring kind of a reparative action and sort of like restore some of the habitat that was sort of like lost with all this work I was doing in the forest here. So we took some of the trees, or some of the sections of trees that were, you know, sort of like taken out of the forest, hacked them up, built these kind of like little Brancusi-ish kind of like blobs, hollowed them out, created a way for the birds to get into them, and offered these birds a chance to sort of like nest here at the sort of like periphery of the property. And so, you know, we were very also interested in the idea that these big kind of pink poles kind of weirdly and sort of disturbingly marked a sort of like periphery here, kind of a boundary of sorts, but not really a boundary. So those are some of the sort of like motivations that were driving us.
What I really liked about I really like the question, what would a sculpture look like if our audience were not human? And I loved the notion that I loved that you were interested in addressing the collapse of the native songbird population.
Right.
That was very interesting to me, and I think these are doing a fantastic job, kind of marking the territory, you know, and the birds are living in there. So it's quite nice. They're enjoying
sadly, this one probably
Maybe not.
I just, the little glob was on the floor, on the
Oh,
ground
did you?
today.
Oh,
I had to
really?
slide it back up.
Oh, okay.
But the others have been intact since the show started.
I was going to ask if the color will be or not.
It doesn't seem to have any impact
They don't. Okay.
that we know of. I mean, maybe it's an attractant, but so far we've seen mostly house wrens moving in.
So they are. Yeah, they don't pay attention to that. That's good.
Beautiful birdhouses.
Thank you.
mean,
Yeah,
it's just so organic and like
we
it's
appreciate
almost
that.
like some bird like dug it out himself or whatever. It's just, I mean, you could sell them.
Well, thanks. Maybe I don't know. I don't think they're terribly durable because we didn't put any sort of like finish on them. We were worried they were just going to explode after, you know, a couple months. But so far they're pretty durable. And then
We're gonna try to because we're now at 3:30.
Oh, goodness, yes.
That was my favorite.
Thank you.
Is that what you tried to make us do last year, Michael?
Well, at one point, yes.
Emily,
Birdhouses?
Yeah.
Emily, we're gonna
That's
end
where I
with your
learned.
piece, and so we're gonna go
Yep.
here, then we're gonna go to Christy's piece, and we're gonna come back around. There's only 3 more pieces, and I'm gonna try to make these next 2 pretty quick, even though they're both interesting works. I don't want to give them short shrift, but I want to give Emily a chance to kind of talk about her work, and then I'd love to answer questions and tell you a little bit more about what I've learned about these questions. So this is a work by Melinda Kiefer. Melinda Kiefer is an artist who, she's totally crazy, and her aesthetics are like wild and intense, and she grew up in a very Catholic household, and Catholic imagery and ritual is very much a part of her, try as she might to kind of distance herself from them. And in this case, she wanted to build a bathtub Madonna, the kinds of Madonnas that, the kinds of structures that you'll see outside of Catholic homes all over the United States and maybe even in some places in South America. You'll see like a bathtub turned on its side and, you know, sculpture of the Madonna in the middle. So she's called this her bathtub grotto, but really her initial thinking was earthship grotto. She's taking earthship building practices and applying them, you know, kind of merging them with Catholic iconography and trying to think about what a earth worshipping Catholic practice would be.
Yeah.
That just like sprouted, huh?
Wow.
Okay. So, this is work by Christy Gast. Christy Gast is a super interesting artist. She teaches at the Nomad 9 MFA program. I know all y'all are MFAs, but if you ever wanted to kind of consider what an MFA program that is entirely geared towards environmental practice might look like, the Nomad 9 MFA is one of those programs, or at least offers one answer to that question. And she's one of the faculty and one of the folks who helped to conceptualize the program.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Can't make it stop.
You don't have to press pause.
So Christy's been doing these workshops with folks over the last bunch of years, where she like uses these BDSM knots to tie people to trees, and she just kind of lets them like sit there and have this like meditative moment with Jesus Lord, just have these meditative moments with trees. So she'll tie your leg to the tree and you'll just be there for about an hour, just meditating on what it means to be bound to this tree, and she'll tie your arm, and similar kind of thing, with these very elaborate BDSM knots. And in this case, she's creating a series of knots in the crotch of this tree, and she's using denim because they have this way of creating these kinds of crotches, you know, like all the different little crotches coming together in the middle, like in the crotch of that tree. So Christy's question really is about how we queer our relationship with the environment, and what for her, you know, queering means it means really asking us to think beyond human to human care, what it means to care beyond, to kind of expand our notion of care, our notion of love, our sexuality beyond other people and towards other organisms, other spaces.